hope that there's the right time for having a coffee, independent where you are, or a fika, as we say in Sweden. So, and I guess it's always a good time for a fika. So welcome on board, everyone. My name is Jon Lindén, CEO and co-founder of Ekkono Solutions. This is actually the first ever Ekkono #Open Fika that we're doing. And as many other things, this is a result of the times we're going through, the corona situation we have. We felt that we are getting too distant from people. We need inspiration, we need engagement, we need to do things where we actually start looking forward and start sharing. And then we came up with the concept of doing a very casual, open concept that we call Open Fika. So hopefully you have your coffee. So switch on my video so you can confirm that I actually have my coffee. And the setup is that we will pick what we think is a very relevant topic, something that we have found out, insights, ideas, suggestions that we will do every now and then as an Open Fika format. Today, we're going to talk about the possibility of capitalizing on customer data in IoT or not. As you will see, I do have some doubts about the possibility of doing it the traditional way. So we're going to go through some slides, some talk, and then we're going to open up for a discussion. And I hope that we're going to be able to actually engage in this format. I guess we're all getting quite used to Zoom as a software by now, after all the video meetings we've been going through in the last few weeks. For this session, here are the recommendations for how we're going to interact and how we're going to engage. If you have any practical questions, you have the chat window. I have my host with me, Eleanor, who will help you if there are any questions and the practicalities that you need help with. Then just shout out in the chat window. If you have any questions or comments, especially questions, put them in the Q&A, and that gives us a good reason to talk about those and bring those up in the follow-on discussions. And then if you want to make a comment, and especially when we get beyond the presentation, just wave your hand or raise your hand, that function in Zoom, and we will be able to unmute you so you can actually start talking and make your opinion heard. So with that being said, here are some of the thoughts and ideas that we have when it comes to IoT and the ability to actually capitalize on customer data. I guess you've all heard the expressions that data is the new oil, data is the new gold. We know that Google and Facebook are being valued on the market for their ability to capitalize on customer data. IoT is the next big thing, and it's all about connecting things. Now that we've been connecting all the people, we're connecting all the things with sensors that are constantly generating data. So of course, that should be an opportunity. My preferred description of Internet of Things is actually that we extend the relationship with the products after they leave the factory. So we actually have a relationship with those things that we produce after they leave the factory. And it's quite tempting, the idea of becoming the Google of water pumps or the Facebook of metal casting. But to create that kind of gigantic data lakes, that will be able to tell you things like what is the future demand for raw metal, what are people's preference when it comes to steel versus plastic, or the consumer's shopping behavior. That's going to be hard. It's going to be way harder than you think. I'm even going to go as far as saying that for most of you, forget about it. And this is for a number of reasons. If we start with the consumer side, the reality is that there are and there will be laws that are saying no to capitalizing on customer data. We already have GDPR. That by default doesn't say no, but it makes it much more complicated. It makes it much more expensive. The other thing is that a lot of people have security concerns. And while consumers might have security concerns, I would argue that the business customers are even more worried when it comes to security. Every time you connect something, you open up a door, and very few will allow open doors into the factory floor. So security is one aspect. Data leakage is another one. If you're a public company, you cannot afford that you have data or production stops and production rates leaking out uncontrolled. And reality is that if you happen to be a globally dominated pump manufacturer, you might even be able to predict the global oil production because you are deployed in so many different places. And that is certainly not in the interest of the customer. And finally, I would say that the customer is not stupid. If you say that you're going to capitalize on customer data, they understand that this is a currency and they want something in return, give and take, so it's a trade. And I would also argue that it's even harder if you happen to be the guy behind the guy, or the guy behind the guy behind the guy, like the ball bearing that goes into this electrical motor that goes into a machine. Then you don't have an agreement with the end customer. And that makes it very unlikely that they will allow you to connect your things and aggregate data from the deployment where you're sitting. In some cases, it might be even worse. Someone might actually be blocking the access to your data. If you look at a car, the manufacturing of a car is a set of Lego components. There are hundreds of components, even full solutions that are provided by different suppliers. All of these different components cannot connect directly to the internet. So when we talk about Internet of Things in this case, they connect to a centrally located telematics gateway that is connected to the internet. However, the OEM is the one who sits on the data. And reality is that if we would have every brake on millions of cars collecting all this data, it would create a gigantic data lake. And making some sense out of that is actually way, way harder than it seems. Being able to correlate, even though companies like Google and Facebook make it look simple, being able to correlate that and figure out the kind of answers that we talked about before is almost impossible. It's very, very complicated, which makes it very expensive. So even though we're not going to be able to maybe do the data mining where we can capitalize on aggregating a large amount of data, it doesn't mean that we can't make money of the sensor data, that we can't make money of IoT. It's sort of the opposite. I mean, IoT is a tremendous opportunity for product companies, the biggest opportunity in a very, very long time. But rather than building these data lakes, maybe you should take a different approach, focusing more on things like smart features, automation, like managing the fuel injection to reduce emissions, or condition-based maintenance where you deploy resources when they are needed rather than on a schedule. Focusing on replicating your domain expertise, where you constantly fine-tune the settings, for example, of a water heater. It's almost like having an engineer sitting in your closet and constantly managing and monitoring your water heater, which in reality would be impossible, but with automation, you can actually have a pretty smart engineer sitting in that closet that is digital. Enabling more services sales, not just predictive maintenance, but also automated machine supervision, performance guarantees. You can sell pumps by the liter instead of the one-time transaction. You can reduce the need for manual installation. You can have more machines that are self-learning the conditions and figuring out what is actually connected to this electrical motor and what is the best configuration to run that deployment. You can replace expensive sensors with virtual sensors that constantly calculate the value without being intrusive. You can measure performance on a production line by actually checking the torque of the motor or the vibration of a pump that tells you how the whole installation feels and is behaving. You can generate very critical health indicators, insights that actually become your currency, because it's a question of figuring out what you're going to do with all these different insights. Let's look at sorry, trying to get the right slide. There we go. So what are the insights that we bring with us, and what are the common denominators? Well, one thing is that if we look at Industry 4.0, I argue that we are currently at the stage where all individual components must become a little smarter in order for the entire production process to become a lot smarter. So by having the ball bearing, figuring out how it's behaving based on vibrations to tell the motor how it's impacting its performance, that is telling the machine how it is actually behaving, you're creating an entirely different workflow. And this is more based on the relationship you have, who is your customer, where you send the data to the neighbor. Rather than sending the insights up to the cloud, you can actually enrich the motor with the information from the ball bearing, and you can enrich the machine with the information from the motor. So you talk to your neighbor, you talk to the one who's actually your customer, and that is a very good way of crowdsourcing relevant insights to the top. Now, this is a good way for the ball bearing to actually be relevant and generate insights that can be a good currency when negotiating with the motor manufacturer, and the same thing all the way up to the machine. So a lot of these features, what we have found out, and that kind of boils back to the whole integrity question, are better done on the device. And the reason is that you don't actually have the manual intervention, or like in the case of the cars or the suppliers to the car and automotive industry, that you don't have an option. The only place where you can build these smart features is actually on the device. And of course, everyone wants to build these smart features. And then, like I said, that can actually become a currency that you can negotiate with the OEM, that in exchange for you getting this free of charge, I want a copy sent to my cloud. Now, accidentally, of course, that is exactly what we do at Ekkono. We're a software company based on 7 years of research where we work with edge machine learning. And one of the unique features and capabilities we have, which is also quite unique for the edge, is that we can learn individually. So like in the case of the RoboMower, I have one of these at home. I wanted to know my garden. I don't want it to know a garden. I wanted to know my garden, which is a very strong, compelling reason for me to stay loyal with Husqvarna when I'm buying an upgrade, because I can actually transfer the learnings from my garden to my next automower. Or like an AC. We have for decades been optimizing the performance and the energy efficiency of air conditioners. So they run as optimal as they can. But that doesn't matter if you deploy an AC in a tropical climate or with an open door to that tropical climate. You also have to optimize how it runs and how it behaves, depending on if it has the privilege of being sold to Stockholm or to Seville. This is, in my opinion, the next big sustainability gain, where we optimize how each and every unit is being operated and run, rather than optimizing the production of each and every product. Or if you take like an electrical car, the whole question of range anxiety, I wanted to tell how far I will get. What is the remaining range for me, based on knowledge and experience of the climate I normally drive in, and the impact of cold versus warm, the hills or the flat landscape I'm driving in, road conditions, driving conditions, all that jazz. So I know how far I will get with that car, rather than how far you will get in average with the remaining battery capacity that you have in the car. So this is something that I'm convinced will be applicable across the board. We're going to see this being used to build smart features on the industrial side all the way to the consumer side. And that's something we have confirmed pretty much already by the things that we are doing with the companies like Siemens, Husqvarna, Volvo, Alfa Laval, ABB, etc. But I'm not going to bore you with company pitch. I'm done with that. So let's try and draw some conclusions and see if we can get some external comments or your opinions about if this is applicable when it comes to monetizing on customer data. First, I don't think that the raw data is the value. The insights are. In this case, size doesn't matter. The biggest data lake is not the one that wins. It's the one who actually has the clearest water with the best insights that can do something with those insights. And don't chew off more than you can swallow, because there's a historical approach to data that you store as much as possible about everything that you can see. I have a background in the telecom space. That's exactly what you did. Let's store everything about what everyone is doing, and we'll figure out what to do with it. That is not feasible today for sheer size, for the experience that we have not actually seen anyone be really successful in monetizing on that. But you need to figure out what you're going to do. And from the fact that it becomes more sensitive, it also becomes more expensive. So be careful. And it is way harder and costlier than it seems. And even though, like I said, Google and Facebook make it look simple, it's not. Consider who's your customer. it's always good if you provide a value to the one who pays your bill. And if your customer is the motor manufacturer, then you shouldn't pursue the ability to aggregate data about the end customer and how they are using the machine. But you should figure out, how can I provide value as the ball bearing that is sitting in this electrical motor to make that better, or to get better insight and look better when they actually generate other insights to the next level up. So feed your neighbor, and don't go too big to start with. This is certainly an experience we have seen in many customer projects, that you have too high ambitions in the beginning. Autonomous driving or production or whatever that you make cognitive and autonomous is the sum of a lot of smart insights. It's not one gigantic AI brain. It's a lot of smart insights where you feed upwards to generate and enable that kind of autonomous functionality. So do a lot, do more. And one thing that I always keep reminding our customer about is that we only provide a tool. Even though it's a very cool tool, we can talk about machine learning, AI, IoT, edge, all these cool names and definitions. At the end of the day, we're just providing another tool, just like connectivity, just like whatever they're buying from different suppliers. At the end of the day, what is really king is domain knowledge. The ability to figure out what is normally causing a problem or a challenge for this product, for this component, whatever it might be. That kind of knowledge is invaluable when it comes to doing automated functions and solutions.